Some students never act out in the classroom. They show up, they do their work, their teachers describe them as hardworking, and they get average grades, and yet they're drowning quietly. I call this the dyslexia coping profile. It's a hidden pattern in some students who look fine in the classroom. Their grades are average, but they're struggling beneath the surface. Today, I'm going to show you how to spot it, why it matters, and what we can do about it. So if you are a classroom teacher, a school evaluator, or a parent, I hope that you find this information helpful. My name is Dr. Jackie Valadez. Thank you for being here today. I'm a certified academic language therapist, licensed dyslexia therapist, and educational diagnostician. I specialize in dyslexia evaluation and diagnosis. So what is the dyslexia coping profile? It refers to students who have not yet been identified with dyslexia because their performance looks average in the classroom. Why does it look average? Because they are using coping strategies like memorization, pattern recognition, whole word reading, guessing, and they are just getting by. They don't raise red flags. They raise their hands. They're compliant. They do what's asked of them. But what's really happening underneath that effort? As they get older, they start to spend so much mental energy masking their struggles, and it catches up with them fast. So what do we look for? Well, here are some common signs of the dyslexia coping profile that may sound familiar to you. Students may do well on silent reading fluency or silent reading assessments in the classroom. Their grades are average, and that might mean 70 or a 75. They might do well on spelling tests because they're good at memorizing words. Their oral reading fluency in connected text, however, is where you'll start to see what's really happening in reading. This is where some students who have characteristics of dyslexia might omit words. They might substitute words for words that look similar. Sometimes if students are even using their own context in reading, their own thinking, they'll substitute words for words that don't even have the same letter patterns than those words on paper. They misread little words in text like the, they, where, are, who, why, and those words get substituted almost interchangeably. And so it really does interfere with the understanding of what they're reading. So students also read with a lack of prosody. That means they're not using punctuation marks in their reading. They're not pausing at a comma, reading the sentence with excitement if it ends in an exclamation point, which impacts comprehension of the story as well. In writing, you might see repetitive sentences. If the teacher provided a sentence frame to begin a writing prompt, for example, that same sentence is used throughout the paper. The words on paper may not reflect the student's oral language vocabulary or their verbal ability. They're using simple words, three-letter words, or just shorter words to describe something. Their sentences are shorter as well, so they have a lot of short sentences. Comprehension overall may be weak. Even in silent reading fluency, it wouldn't be as high as expected for that student. Students do well on multiple choice tests. They can use the process of elimination and guess at that correct answer. They go back to the story often trying to find an answer that would make most sense. If they were evaluated, their achievement testing and cognitive testing may also just all kind of look average without a lot of spikes. It's just a flat average within the range of average. to low average to maybe even some upper average scores, but nothing really outlying that shows pattern of strength and weaknesses. Teachers often do describe these students as hardworking, they persevere, they never give up. They just have the right attitude, but effort doesn't equal mastery. So why it's missed? Well, these students, they behave, they do not disrupt class, they're well-mannered, polite, they don't ask for help all the time. Their scores are average, their behavior is excellent. So what happens? Well, they go unidentified until the demands grow and their coping strategies start to collapse, usually around third or fourth grade, when there is a shift of learning to read to reading to learn. So content area reading, you're going to see some challenges there in science text, social studies text. So really looking at grade level text and asking students to read grade level text to you is very important. And that's where you're going to see what strategies they use for decoding words, which is often whole word guessing rather than decoding words or breaking words apart into syllables. So the emotional toll. Coping comes at a cost. The mental fatigue, loss of confidence, quiet frustration in the classroom. However, opposite at home, where the student may exhibit tears of how hard the work is, all of that takes place and it really puts a toll on students. Many of these students might express to their parents that they don't like going to school, or perhaps it starts off with that they're not feeling well, but then they seem fine when they're at home. Or you take them to the doctor and the doctor says they're fine. The students may express that they're not good at something, not just because they can't learn, but because we didn't catch it soon enough. And now the gaps are wide in those foundational skills. And so it's caught up to the student. So, what can we do? Well, as educators, as classroom teachers or evaluators, we want to communicate with parents and form a team. So, as a team, we can learn a lot from one another, but parents have a lot of important information to share, and I find that they are important to survey or ask questions about, how long does homework take your child at home? Because in the classroom, they're needing a lot of extra time to finish some of the classwork. And so that's just getting the conversation going. So we want to not rely on standardized scores if you're an evaluator or just classroom grades if you're a teacher. So we hear often, oh no, his grades are fine, he's doing well. But how long is it taking students to finish their work? Do they have to retake a test? What are some extra supports that the teacher is giving them in the classroom? So those extra supports might be leveling the playing field. It's very important to know, what can this student do independently? Do grades really reflect achievement independently, or are the grades through accommodations or modified work? As teachers, we need to observe oral reading, and evaluators do. I know that they do this as well. But those errors that the students make in oral reading, we want to see, what do those align with? Do they align with a student who may be struggling quietly and using those coping strategies? So look how students write, not just at grammar, but really, does their writing match their verbal ability? Are they using simple words in this story for a third grader? Are they using short sentences? Do you see any combined sentences? Are there any words that are real descriptive in there? Or are they sticking to those very simple words? For example, the dog is walking or the girl is jumping. Is there anything more beyond that? So we could also talk to students. I think interviewing students is real important and goal setting for students. So how do they feel about reading? What do they like to read? Same with math, joy, and what do they find hard and what's hard about it? So those types of questions are real important. As teachers, it's real important to really find those students. I think we do a great job of working with those struggling learners. But those students who are just getting by with C's and you could see the effort they're putting in, why do we not see their true strengths in classwork or in achievement, or what is their area of strength and why are they not performing to their strength? If they loved math and all of a sudden we're in word problems and their grades drop, is reading the problem? So those are some things to look at. So finding those copers, not just those strugglers. With the right support, these students will thrive, but we have to find them first before they start to feel discouraged and lose their confidence. And then they really don't enjoy school and the gaps just get wider. So if this sounds like a student that you've taught or tested, or if you're a parent and this sounds like perhaps it could be your child, drop a comment. Let's start the conversation and let's discuss the dyslexia coping profile. I'd love to hear what you've done and any questions that you have. Perhaps we can help each other answer them. So it's time we stop overlooking these students who have gotten really good at hiding their struggle, because struggles are real. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.